Hi, I am Mina Nicole with Elegant Occasions Event Center and Ground Zero Business Group, and we're here today to talk to you about mental health. During the time of Corona, mental health is one of the topics that a lot of people have been discussing. Is vitally important, especially in the African American community, because we tend to not discuss it that often. So we are definitely taking some time out of our normal discussions regarding business to sit down and have a conversation about mental health. With me today, I have Ms. Tamika Stewart. She's a professional counselor, and she's going to be available to answer any questions that we have in regards to mental health. And I encourage everyone, if you feel comfortable, please share, because this is the only way that we can learn and move forward, especially with the new guidelines and changes that's been issued by the Georgia governor. We're definitely going to talk about that as well too, but mainly we're just going to talk it out about how to cope with what has been going on with the stay-at-home orders and how to continue to cope with any mental health issues or questions that you might have going forward into this transition period that we are moving into. And we know that there's a lot of uncertainty that's going on. Last week, I just want to say thank you real quick to Mr. Townsend, who joined us and talked about contracting. I got a lot of positive feedback about that, and I just want to say thank you, and hopefully that segment and this one helps someone going forward. Next week, we are going to talk about spiritual health as well, because again, this is a vitally important part of our segment, and it goes hand in hand with mental health. And these are the two things that's personally have been keeping me and my family during this time. And I just want to talk to others about it as well. So we'll have Pastor Rodney Blackman on with from Fresh Rain Church, and he'll be talking to us about spiritual health. So we ask you all to join in on that conversation as well. I'll have Ms. Tamika introduce herself. Tamika, can you say hi to everyone and tell us a little bit about yourself and your practice?
Hello, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining in. My name is Tamika Stewart, and I am a licensed professional counselor with the state of Georgia. I currently do online counseling through BetterHelp. I also do community counseling, and right now with everything going on, everything has been virtual. And you would think that with everyone at home and resting, that things would be going well. Well, unfortunately, we know that that is not the case. Isolation brings about depression, anxiety, and not knowing where we stand currently in our state with testing and the availability of healthcare for our African American community. We are suffering faster than any other ethnic group. So I am so glad that we have this time to, have an open discussion about this and start to discuss how we can reach more people and get them to understand health is a #1 concern for our minority community, especially our African American community, due to lack of the socioeconomic disparities. That's #1. That's why our numbers are rising. We're not able to get the help that we need.
And is there a special area that you specialize in when it comes to providing counseling services?
Yes, I specialize with, I work with children, adolescents and children with severely emotionally disturbed diagnoses. I have a history with working with substance abuse. I used to be the director of an all-male substance abuse program in Metro Atlanta. So I pretty much have run the gamut on interventions for families.
Okay, and what inspired you to become a professional counselor?
It's when you go back to spirituality, it was a spiritual calling.
Okay, awesome. And how has your practice been impacted by the coronavirus?
It's increased. I am busier than I've ever been with online services being available to families, and also with the families that I was already working with needing increased services because they're all clustered together. You have children who have diagnoses of intermittent explosive disorder, ADHD, oppositional defiant. Can you imagine them being home 24 hours a day, 7 days a week with their parents? It's becoming overwhelming for some of the parents. So the need has increased.
I could definitely imagine, and that's why I think this is so important. Personally, for me, I started seeing a mental health professional, I would say, in the past couple of years when me and my now husband were preparing to get married. One of my friends actually recommended going to couples counseling, and that was one of the best things that I did personally. And one of the other things that she recommended that I highly, highly recommend, she said, don't just go together, but go by yourself. So outside of going with my husband, I actually went by myself. And with that, I learned not only who I am more so, but why I am the way that I am. So I highly, highly recommend it, especially now during these times. Is vitally important, not only as a business owner, but as an individual, as a parent. I personally don't have any kids, but I know that there's a lot of parents that, having a hard time right now coping with not only having to homeschool their kids, but just dealing with everything else, finances, not knowing what's going to happen, being afraid to go outside. So these are real issues that not only African Americans are dealing with, but just people in general are dealing with. And we are going to get into that a little later as far as, giving some recommendations for parents on what exactly they can do during this time. And how does the isolation aspect of our stay-at-home order affects like mental health?
Well, what I've been seeing in my clients, isolation and lack of connectedness to other people is causing anxiety. The fear, the fear of the unknown and what's going to come out at the end of this is what's causing so much concern and so much anxiety for people. Isolation in itself is not easy for people who are not used to being alone.
And one of the things that I've been trying to do, being that I own an event center, and we're not able to physically socialize right now, I've been having virtual events. And I've had like a wine tasting, I've had a party, and these events surprisingly have come across really well because people just need an outlet and they need to be able to see other people. They need something to look forward to. So doing something as simple as that has greatly helped not only myself, but just everyone else that was a part of those activities, just kind of get through that day, that weekend. It gave women a chance to put on some makeup or maybe put on the dress or something like that, just to try and feel more like yourself. So that's very, very important right now. And recently in the news, I read that there was a young lady in California, I think she was about 15 years old, who unfortunately killed herself because she was having a hard time dealing with isolation. And right now, I know that this is definitely going to impact, unfortunately, the suicide rate as well. So can you talk about that a little more?
Sure. Not just the suicide rate, but let's talk about child abuse and neglect. Let's talk about domestic violence. Increase in depression, increase in lack of services, again, because you're not connected to someone else. When you're leaving the house, even for children, they leave the house, they're going to school, they're socializing, so they're already at risk if you're coming from a house where there's domestic violence, substance abuse, child abuse, but having nobody to see you, there's nothing there for them. So you're going to see an increase in all of those. You're going to see an increase in child abuse cases. You're going to see an increase in suicide risk. you're going to see an increase in domestic violence because we're not able to get out and have connectedness. These women, these children, these individual adolescents, at least they had socialization. They had people that they could be connected to. They were in school or in aftercare, something that somebody was able to lay their eyes on them. Being isolated and disconnected from the world and only being at home is a risk, the bottom line. Because if you do have these problems, let's take a look at when I said I work with children who have certain diagnoses. They are intermittent explosive disorder. With that disorder, the behavior is uncontrollable. The anger, the rage comes out of nowhere. And if you're at home with this child 24/7 and you're a single parent or even a two-parent home, that is hard to deal with. That is extremely stressful. And those circumstances increase the likelihood of child abuse.
Mm-hmm. I totally agree with that. And unfortunately, a lot of parents, again, are struggling with that. So what are some ways that you recommend for parents to just, kind of take care of themselves as well? Because as a parent, you tend to take care of others first, your kids, your spouse, even a dog if you have it. But how can you take care of yourself? Because if you're not okay, nothing in the house is okay.
That is true. What I've been telling my clients is personal insight and taking time out. It's okay, and you shouldn't have parent guilt for taking time, a 15-minute break, if nothing else, because if you are at home alone with your children and you have small children under the age of 10, you really can't leave them alone for too long. But 15-minute break, just to have some alone time, set them up with maybe, if you can, because some parents aren't able to do this, a virtual with a friend or another family member to keep them entertained during that 15-minute break so that you could just go have some alone time and calm down and take a break. That's the problem. These parents aren't getting breaks.
And in that break, it's important to do whatever it is you need to do. If it's scream, roll on the floor, cry, vent, curse, or whatever, that definitely helps mentally and physically as well too, because it gets a lot of that frustration out. Lately, personally for me, I've been gardening a lot. That definitely helps me with reducing stress. And then I try and walk in the morning and do yoga. So that's definitely been helping me just kind of mix up my day so I really don't focus on, oh God, I'm in the house again another day, not really knowing what day it is half the time. Right. But just trying to do stuff to just stay going and maintain some type of routine. I think that's very important. And another aspect of this is a lot of people are having bouts of depression. On a normal day, people really don't know that they're depressed. But now I think it's more evident than ever that there's a lot of people that's carrying a lot of depression. So what are some ways that you can, I guess, recognize if you are in a depressed state or entering in a depressed state? And what are some things, again, that you can do to try and help yourself through that?
Well, the depressed state, and I will make sure that I give you guys some resources at the end of this for people who are in crisis, or a helpline for non-crisis and non-emergency mental health issues. So I'll make sure that I give you that. But some of the signs are inability to feel joy. If more often than not you are feeling hopeless, and there's thoughts of despair and problems with sleeping, change in your overall mood, those are some indicators that you may be feeling or experiencing some depression.
And as a professional counselor, a lot of people really don't feel comfortable coming forward to actually talk to someone. And I know you and I talked offline about the importance of being heard. Can you expound on that a little bit?
Well, especially in our African American community, we can, go back to the 1950s and 60s with regards to lack of trust with our doctors and the healthcare system. But more importantly, right now, it's stigma. It's a stigma. You don't want to be labeled as crazy, or the church is what you need to get over whatever depression or mental health things you may be experiencing. You pray about it. Yeah, that's wonderful. If that is your belief, pray about it. That's great. But you also need to seek a spiritual counselor or a spiritual psychiatrist, somebody that can tap into those deficits that you're experiencing. Because once they go untreated for so long, then you're at a higher risk for the other things to start to happen. Suicidal thoughts, self-harm. With you being isolated, that's kind of hard for other people to see those triggers, for people to see those indicators if you're not out in the open, you're in total isolation.
That's also true. And you just mentioned something about just kind of speaking with someone that you could kind of connect with. And again, we spoke about having a culturally competent physician or therapist. And after speaking with you, I understand that's important, because there's a lot of stuff that we as African American, or we as women, that we go through that, say, other cultures might not necessarily understand. And a lot of times, a lot of that stuff is deep rooted. And it's hard to kind of explain and go all the way back, like you said, in 1950, and try and bring people forward with how it's impacting us now. So can you expound a little more on that point?
With our African American community, more of our children are more likely to see a therapist that looks like them and open up therapists that looks like them than they are not. So back to the generational distrust of doctors and psychiatrists, that's what plays into people not wanting to go to therapy if you don't have someone or feel the connection to someone who culturally understands what's going on with you. So you walk in and there's already a wall guard that's already there. So if you can't find something that connects you to someone else, you're more likely to either not come back, or you're not going to talk. The children will sit there. I have seen them do it, even with myself. But after a while, because I look like them and because I understand some of the circumstances that these children are coming from, or their families, you're more likely to get a response.
Okay.
Fear is paralyzing for people at this point right now.
And I think that's the most challenging part right now, because a lot of people don't know. So here in Georgia, yesterday the governor just put out new guidelines saying that non-essential businesses will be able to open, some of them starting Friday, like beauty salons, tattoo shops, massage parlors, stuff like that. And then on Monday, restaurants will start to open. But how can I go to the gym or go to the spa and relax, and I'm focusing on, am I breathing in corona? Is this person touching me have corona? So how am I supposed to deal with that fear, that uncertainty of going out? Granted, I know at some point we all are going to have to go back to normal life, or our new normal. But right now, how is it that a person is kind of supposed to cope with this sudden urgency to reopen everything?
That one is a good question. And where we are with the uncertainty and not knowing, if you have the virus, if you don't, there isn't enough testing going on for us to even be able to be out there going back to normal. How can we go back to normal if, and number one, for the African American community, let's talk about that. Our numbers are increasing daily. So for us to go back out there and decide we're gonna, re-enter into the world without the knowledge of how we can go get tested, where we can go if we are sick, that in itself is enough to maybe have a little bit of hesitancy about where the future lies for Georgia, and especially the Metro Atlanta area, because again, Metro Atlanta area, Atlanta's mayor didn't know that we were opening back up to even prepare the city for the reopening, and as well as Augusta. Augusta is a large city. Mayor didn't know. So you have two big elements there that would cause a lot of confusion, and the lack of knowledge to me would be enough to say, let's wait for a little while to see what parameters are put in place to make sure that we are safe. And again, I'm talking about the African American community because our numbers are rising.
Right, and I think a lot of that started too with the misinformation that came out earlier that African Americans can't get the virus, and now we're seeing that we're getting it at higher rates than other races. And unfortunately, we have a lot of underlying health issues that we deal with, and we don't have access in a lot of the communities to health care, medical care, to masks, to gloves, and stuff like that as well. Some of the communities don't even have toilet paper. So let's start right there. So there is a lot of things that we as African Americans have to do to take care of ourselves and to make sure that we're being protected. As for me and my business, honestly, I don't feel comfortable opening right now. Our events have been postponed through the end of April, and the ones that are in the beginning of May have already asked to reschedule. So we don't have anything on our books. So I'm going to just take that time to continue to self-isolate, and hopefully that within that time period that something else will be figured out, and we'll kind of start to see how this reopening is going so far. So I think it's important that we just take responsibility for ourselves and our families, and just make the right decisions. If you don't have to go out, definitely don't. And just, keep praying, and then just keep ourselves together. So when things open back up, we are okay. Are there any questions so far? Again, if you don't feel comfortable voicing your questions, you can send me a question in the chat and I'll read it out, or you can raise your hand and I'll unmute your screen.
Well, while we're waiting on that, if you guys could take this information down regarding the National Alliance on Mental Health. Their non-crisis help number is 770-408-0625. The crisis number is 1-800-715-4225. Those are numbers just in case family members or friends that you know are in a crisis. For the ones who are not and just maybe want to find what mental health services or resources are out there and available, you can use the non-crisis number for that.
Okay, and I have a question from Valencia. Valencia,
I guess I have,
go ahead.
Okay, I think I have more so like a statement to kind of piggyback off what you said as far as, the local government and authorities are opening up certain states, saying for local businesses to pretty much to kind of go back to normal. I just feel like the media has instilled this fear in us, given us death tolls and everything that's, going on, but they have not assured us, what's going to happen now that they're trying to open these businesses. They haven't told us what to do at this point. If we do contract it, do they have a better handle on it? They haven't given us recently, like, numbers of people that have recovered, any hospital cases, things like that, and new medications that they probably came out with to help with the situation. And to put it in a nutshell, I just feel like they want everything to pretty much to go back to normal for the economy, but they have not given us no, assurance that that, things will be okay.
True, true.
Yeah.
And I think that's
Thank you,
what a lot of
Valencia.
people need right now.
Mm-hmm.
That's I guess that's what I need right now. I need assured in some type of way that, okay, public, and like you said, Mina, go to the spa or anything else, I want to be able to be assured that I wouldn't have to look over my shoulder or be afraid that the person that's giving me a massage possibly could have, COVID and can pass it on to me and my family.
Mm-hmm. And I also think Valencia, what I've personally been doing is I control what information I get. So I don't listen to all media all day, and I definitely don't listen to President Trump. That's just me personally. But I do listen to the CDC. I do listen to the health officials that are speaking. I definitely read. I read more, and I prefer to read my news more because I can get the facts and not opinions at that point. And then, like I said earlier, it's really a matter of being responsible for yourself and your family. Just making sure you're making the right decisions for you and your family, and not really relying on the government to help you and make decisions for you at this point. And as I mentioned, as a business owner myself, I'm not making any money right now compared to what I would have been making, but safety is first. Safety for myself, my family, and of course my clients that come into my venue is important. And there are struggles that different business owners are going through, and we do want to get back to business, but we want to be able to do it in a safe manner. And unfortunately, like you said, waiting on guidance from the government, at this point, you kind of got to think for yourself and do what's best for you and your family at the end of the day. And watch the news and take what you need from it, and then make your decisions from that point on. Would you like to add anything, Tamika?
No, that's pretty much in a nutshell what I would have said. Creating a support network so that you can talk to people, feel like you have some type of connection outside of your home, family, friends. Stay connected, check on one another. Don't just say, yeah, I'm okay, when you know you're not okay. It's okay to not be okay. We don't all have to be strong 24 hours a day.
Yes.
So just make sure that you are telling a close friend, I'm feeling a little different. I'm fearful. I could hear it in Valencia's voice. There's some fear there. Like, do I step back out? I'm afraid to stay home because I'm not making money, but I'm also afraid to leave my house because my life would be at risk. So I just urge you all to create a support network for one another.
Do we have any other questions? Trying to make sure I'm not missing anyone. Has anyone found this information, this discussion to be helpful? You can shake your head, raise your hand. Thank you, Valencia. Okay, Soup Bone and the McCoys. Yes, I appreciate you all being on. And the main thing is, please take care of yourself. Again, your faith needs to be in the higher power at this point. If you don't believe in God, I suggest you start believing in God, because that is what's keeping me, keeping my family, keeping my friends at this point. And personally, I've started journaling again. That's definitely helpful as well too. It's therapeutic. If you don't feel comfortable talking to anyone, definitely talk to yourself. It's good to just be able to get it out and write it out. At this point, as I've been saying, this too shall pass, and we just gotta keep on keeping on. And especially in the Black community, we just have to keep each other kind of together, keep each other focused. I know that we want to get our eyebrows done because mine's about to connect right here in the middle. So I've been trying to keep it up myself. But we definitely just got to be smart about what it is that we're doing. Tamika, how can someone get in contact with you in your practice if they're interested in getting any services or maybe following up and just asking a question that they might not have felt comfortable asking?
What I'll do is put my link and information on, I think I can add it to the chat part. And so if it's going to be a part of, if we're going to, put this on social media, I can make sure that my information is on that post.
Okay, and for those that joined in late, thank you, Dee, for your comment. She said, "Thank you, ladies. We need this in the Black community." We appreciate you tuning in. So we are going to have a portion of our Q&A that's going to be offline. So if you feel comfortable asking questions at that point, feel free to do so. Again, you don't have to show your face. You don't have to your name. You can send it to me in the chat and I'll definitely read it. But this is something that's affecting everyone, and the question you have may be the question that's going to help someone else too. Is there others that might have any questions or anything like that? Or comments? Mayfield, I see you. You say you need to turn your TV off. Like I said, don't turn off the TV. Just filter what it is that you are allowing into your space. Not saying just focus on one news network, but just get your information from different sources to make sure that you're getting the right information. So we appreciate you all for joining in. I am Mina Nicole. Again, with Elegant Occasions Event Center and Ground Zero Business Group. Next week, as I mentioned, we will be having Pastor Rodney Blackman on from Fresh Rain Church. He'll be talking about spiritual health. And if you all have time, please join in because that's a vital part of making it through all of this, between the mental and the spiritual and just connecting. We're just trying to help not only businesses, but just people in general, just make it through this session. I'd like to thank Ms. Tamika Stewart for lending her expertise and her time with us today. Thank you very much. And also for everyone that tuned in to watch and everyone that will watch, please feel free to share this, repost it, comment on it. You can reach us on Facebook at Elegant Occasions Event Center. And also, we're on Instagram at My Elegant Venue or Ground Zero Biz, that's B-I-Z, if you would like to leave a comment or repost. So thank you for joining in, and we will see you on next Tuesday.